appeal. Baha gets permission to appeal the decision. What's the next step for them?
Also ahead tonight, a group arraigned in court today in connection with 2 major drug busts last week.
Dues dump. The labor minister speaks out on union dues not being taken out of paychecks at one resort. The Bahamas Tonight, the national report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Lawyers for Baha get the green light today to take their fight to the Court of Appeal. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Chris Saunders. Thank you so much for joining us. They're seeking to overturn a decision by Supreme Court Justice Ian Winder to dismiss a Chapter 11 bankruptcy order filed in the United States. Here's Fern Carey.
Supreme Court Judge Ian Winder granted Baha leave or the right to appeal the ruling to dismiss the resort's application to have its Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings recognized by the Bahamian courts. During the proceedings, Crown prosecutors and attorneys for China Construction Company and China Exim Bank all indicated that Baha's application for leave to appeal was misconceived and ought to be dismissed. They noted that the judge's ruling was a final order, which means that Baha could have gone directly to the Court of Appeal rather than seeking leave from the Supreme Court. Crown Prosecutor Lauren Klein also indicated that there is no new point to argue or consider at the Court of Appeal, and Baha's application is doomed to fail. After hearing from all sides, Justice Ian Winder granted Baha leave to appeal. Baha's attorney, Patrick Ryan, spoke to reporters outside court.
You make an application and your application is granted, you're pleased that that's happened. So I'm pleased.
In his written ruling released Friday, July 31st, Justice Winder explained why he dismissed Baha's application seeking various orders and relief in aid of its bankruptcy proceedings. He noted, among other things, that he could not treat the U.S. bankruptcy as a domestic insolvency and thereby access statutory provisions which were created for the purposes of a domestic insolvency. He also noted that for the court to extend an automatic stay to a foreign insolvency in the absence of a winding up order or appointment of a provisional liquidator would amount to adjusting the legislation to suit the applicant's case in a manner not permitted by the legislation. Justice Winder also pointed out that the granting of the assistance sought by Baha is contrary to public policy in protecting the rights of secured creditors to enforce their security outside of and insulated from any insolvency process. He noted that there is no equivalent to Chapter 11 and the Bahamian law by which the breathing space Baha sought to complete the development can be created or new capital can be injected on terms acceptable to any reasonable lender. All sides are still expected back in court on August 19th for the winding up hearing. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
Well, also from the courts today, 26-year-old Wenzel Demerit, the father of a 4-year-old boy killed after being shot to the stomach at his Balls Alley home Saturday, has been charged with manslaughter by negligence. Demerit appeared before Magistrate Andrew Forbes in Court 8 today and was not required to enter a plea. The case will be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court by way of a voluntary bill of indictment. He was also charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm and possession of ammunition, charges which he's denied. Demerit has been remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. He is due back in court August 10th. Demerit's 4-year-old was at home with another child when police say they found the gun. He was shot and later died of his injuries in hospital.
Still in court, 21-year-old Michael Newland and 17-year-old girl were charged with 5 counts of attempted murder in connection with the Key West Street shooting on Wednesday night. 3 adults, including a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl who were shot to the head, were injured. The 2 appeared before Magistrate Andrew Forbes and were not required to enter a plea. Bail was denied. The 17-year-old minor, who we cannot identify, was remanded to the William A. Pratt School for Girls, and Newland has been remanded to the Department of Corrections until August 10th, when they will receive voluntary bills of indictment, sending the matter directly to the Supreme Court.
Well, also from the drug courts today, 5 people were charged with possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply in connection with a drug bust in Exuma Saturday. 21-year-old Mackenson McKenzie, 34-year-old Tori Burrows, 40-year-old Montresor Charlton, and 21-year-old Ariel Cooper all pleaded not guilty to the charge, while 33-year-old Sheldon Johnson pled guilty. Now, as a result, the prosecutor said she would drop charges against the others. Johnson's attorney argued his client had no previous convictions, was a father of 2, and had a medical condition which allowed the use of just one of his kidneys. He said as Johnson did not waste the court's time, that should be taken into account. In issuing his sentence, Forbes said as a father of 2, he found it difficult believing Johnson would engage in an activity that could potentially kill him, as there could be the need to protect his drug supply from others. Now, Johnson was fined $15,000, half of which is due at the end of the day and the other half before August 18th. He was also sentenced to 3 years at the Bahamas Department of Corrections.
Still at court, 4 people were charged with possession of dangerous drugs in connection with a bust in western New Providence Wednesday night. They are 41-year-old Roberto Samuel Williams, aka Roberto Samuel Lewis, 23-year-old Trevor Leonardo Lewis, 27-year-old Rashad McPhee, and 39-year-old Indiana Cantice Cartwright. They were also charged with possession with the intent to supply and conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs. They all pleaded not guilty to the charges. Pleaded not guilty, pardon me. The group has been remanded to the Department of Corrections, and the case has been adjourned until November 18th. During that bus, officers confiscated 36 crocus sacks of drugs, including cocaine.
We're almost halfway through the hurricane season. Will the predictions prove true? I'm Carla Palmer. Find out coming up in the Bahamas tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the new Shell and Letty, designed for extra miles.